Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to do the brakes on the Patrol. I've been meaning to do this for quite some time now, however we're finally getting around to doing it. Now before you start, you obviously want to make sure you've got all the right tools and stuff you're going to need to be able to do it. So jack stands, right sockets, and obviously your brakes and your brake pads. Now it's certainly recommended to do all your brakes at the same time, and especially if you're going to be doing a rotor change, it's a good time to do your brake pads as well, just because you know they're done at the same time and you won't have to worry about them. Typically pads should wear out first, and then your rotors, you should be able to get 2 cycles out of a pair of rotors if they are good quality and your pads aren't too aggressive. Obviously it depends on the driving you're doing as well, but that's typically what should happen. However, it's just good practice to do them all at the same time. This is the brake fluid reservoir on the Patrol, and it is massive compared to a lot of other vehicles. So something you're going to want to figure out when you are compressing the pistons inside the calipers, it's going to push fluid back through the system. Now you can either just crack the bleed screw and have the fluid come out at the side that you're doing, or you can just take some fluid out of the reservoir and then refill it once you're done. That's the method I'm going to do today because it's a lot easier. Now however, we do have quite a lot of room in the reservoir. It's obviously at its max, however it's a good idea just to take a little bit out of it and just make sure that it's not going to come out the top when you are doing your brakes. That's the last thing you want, because brake fluid is very corrosive and will ruin your paint and strip pretty much anything off anything. So we're going to take the cap off that one, take a little bit out of there, and then we can get cracking. Alright, so I'm going to start off with the left side first. You obviously want to identify a good jacking point. The brakes that I'm fitting today are from DBA. I wanted to go with a slotted rotor, however I couldn't get any at the time, so I've just had to go with a solid rotor instead. However, these are the 4000 series, which are designed for 4-wheel drives. The rear brakes I was able to get in a slotted configuration, so it doesn't matter too much. However, they will certainly be a nice upgrade and will handle the heat a lot better. I've also gone with DBA's Extreme pads, which I'll show you later on once we get there. However, DBA are renowned for their quality and are just fantastic when it comes to doing brake related stuff. Now, as you can see, there's a bit of a protective finish over this, and when you fit it up, you're going to want to make sure that you're spraying this with some parts cleaner just to remove all that, so the bedding in process is a lot easier and there's not crap on the face and the backside of the rotor. So now we're going to jack up the car, get the wheel off, and then we can get cracking. Alright, so I've jacked the car up at the front just using the lower control arm there, because obviously with an independent vehicle you can't really jack from anywhere else on the chassis rail because it'll just flex out the car and there's too much travel to actually jack it up anywhere else. So I've got the wheel off the ground high enough now, so now we can take that off and can get to the brakes. Alright, once you get that off, you're greeted with everything you need. Now these are quite big calipers on the Patrol, so we're very lucky to have such good stopping power. Now these rotors aren't too bad. They do have a slight lip at the top, very slight, but the rotors are actually still in quite good condition on this side at least, so that's good. Obviously I like to place my tyre underneath the car just for an added level of security as well. Now once you're under here, it's a good chance to just have a bit of a look at your bushings and stuff. It gives you a good view of the CV and everything as well. Have a good look and inspect that sort of stuff whilst you're under here. It seems like there's 4 bolts we're going to have to take off, and then we can take the caliper off and get the rotor off. I'm going to grab some cable ties so I can cable tie the caliper out of the way so there's no pressure on that brake line, so we don't do any damage. Alright, it's a little bit of a mission, like everything on the Patrol. It's big, It's got some 24mm bolts that hold the caliper to the actual bracket there at the back. There's one at the top, and there's also one at the bottom side there, and they are very difficult to get off, but a WD-40 certainly helped. Now I can hopefully remove that caliper and we can swap out the brake rotor. Right, so I've got the caliper tied up just to the upper control arm there. The calipers are quite heavy, so just be mindful of that. Pads are out and they actually aren't bad at all. They do have quite a bit of meat left on them still, so they were still okay for quite some time, but you can see there's some funny sort of scoring on there. It'll be still good to replace them anyway. So we did get there in the end. Of course, again, is looking a bit worse for wear, and it's got mud and crap all through it, so good time to replace them regardless. So now we've just got to get this rotor off, which is stuck on there, of course. So hit it with a hammer a little bit and hopefully we'll get it to break free. All right, we got the rotor off. Bit of WD-40 again and we're able to break free. Now if your rotor is stuck on there, it's most likely due to some rusting and stuff on the actual hub, which isn't uncommon, especially if you drive your car sand and on the beach and that sort of thing. It'll happen. It's just the nature of it, really. Sand and crap will get behind here and will cause this to rust. So now's a good time to get a wire brush and give the hub face a good clean up and make sure that there's sort of not much rust left on there when you go to reinstall your rotor. That'll just make sure it has a good mating surface and hopefully it doesn't get stuck on there again. All right, we've got the new rotor on. Obviously match it up with your old one and make sure that they're the same size. You never know, someone might have made a mistake in the factory and sent you the wrong one. Who knows? So just double check and make sure they're right. I've sprayed that down with a degreaser, so both faces of it will now be right to go, free from any contaminants. We won't have any dramas when we go to bed them in. Oh, I've never had a car fight me so much to do brakes, but it is to be expected. This is the first time the brakes have been done on the car, so everything will be really tight and difficult to get off, but we got there in the end. So now we can push the caliper pistons in and we can then install the new brake pads. You can get a proper tool to do it, however I just get a piece of wood and a G-clamp and that works fine for me. Obviously the wood won't damage the metal of the calipers, but just be careful when you do that. Obviously these are a 4-pot front, so they have 4 sets of pistons, so you need to move them all in and then you can install your new pads. Alright, so this DBA Extreme Performance brake kit comes with some spare slides and a retaining sort of spring. So that's really nice, and we can replace them, which is really good. Because obviously they're the old ones and they're looking, well, just dirty, but it's nice to have some new ones as well, so that's really good. Now obviously just have a look at your pads, make sure they look pretty much the same, which these do. Don't worry so much if these backing plates come off. They're just like anti-squeal sort of backing plates that a lot of OEMs have, so don't worry too much if your pads only look like this. Don't stress about that. Something to keep in mind too, which I had no idea, is actually a left and a right brake pad. So you can see there's this little metal tab thing, and there's also one on that one as well, and of course I didn't pay attention to which side that come from because I didn't realize that that was how these were designed. So I'll have to do a little bit of trial and error. I'm not really sure where that little thing would locate, so we'll do a little bit of trial and error and figure it out, and I'll let you know which side is which. So I've just loosely done up them brake caliper bolts so it will sit there and we can actually position it properly. So obviously the side that has all the material on it is the side that goes onto the rotor. So I'll put this one in on this side and just see if it'll actually go in there. It doesn't really want to go on that side, so perhaps it's for this side, and that side goes in nicely. So perhaps that one goes on there, I don't know. And is that going at the top or the bottom? Well, that's anyone's guess. Have a look inside the caliper, and can we see anything? Yes, there's something up the top there that looks like a bit of a wear mark from where it might sit, so it might be that it goes up the top. And this one is more keen to go in that side. This is a bit of a two-hand job, that one, but I think that one goes over there. So I'll muck around with it and see if it goes in nicely. And if it doesn't, well, I don't know. But I'll figure it out. Alright, so I think it does go in the way that I did it. Because up the top here, there's a little bit of a recessed notch here. You can see that there. I think that's where it's supposed to sit, and I think it just sort of helps to retain that pad for whatever reason, but it's, I don't know, a bit weird. I've never seen that before, but everyone's obviously different. And obviously don't forget your little retaining spring on the other side. And of course them pins went in easy as. So now I can tighten up them bolts, the wheel on, and do the other side. Also, make sure you don't forget your back retaining little bracket tab thing there. That obviously goes at the back of the brake pads. Put this side in first, the bottom side, and then push and pull in on the top, and it'll clip over that top pin and just help to retain the pads in their position there. So don't forget that, otherwise you will have problems. bang, just like that, we're all back together. That side was so much easier, I suppose, because I knew what I was doing this time. So that was probably about 20 minutes and that was all done. You've seen how quick that was. wasn't much mucking around at all. It was yeah, quite easy, so that was good. Now we can chuck the wheel back on and we can go and bed in the new brake pads. Following from yesterday's bit of rust and corrosion, I've gone ahead and already sprayed everything with WD-40 and just left it to soak. Now I did think that the rear was going to be easier. The caliper design is easier. However, the bolts to undo the caliper bracket are of course in an annoying position. Top one there, which is a 19mm, and then there's the bottom one down there, again a 19mm. And I think they will be difficult to remove just of their position. I can't really get the impact in there, but we'll see how we go. They obviously have to come off, so we'll get there one way or another. Alright, so I just took the caliper off. Obviously still need to get the bracket off, but at least I can get to the brake pads. And these are the rear brake pads. And as you can see, they've worn down quite low. So the rear does a lot of braking and these wear out a lot quicker. So that was just some 14mm bolts that hold that caliper onto the bracket, and it's just a single piston in the rear, so quite a large single piston, but a single piston nonetheless. So yes, that's the original OEM one, and we're replacing it with these DBA ones, which are fantastic. They're not their full sort of track race ones, they're just some high performance ones, because you know it's a big car, so we need good performing pads, especially with all that weight. And again, they do have a specific side. So the bit with the tab is the bit that goes closest to you. That decides to focus. So that tab there is the bit that goes on the outside, and then there's just normal brake pad that goes on the inner side. So just keep that in mind when you do take them off, because they are directional. Right, so when you go to take them off, that there is the side closest to you. It's got one tab up the top, and then the inner side has two tabs. Got another tab there. So just make sure you put them in the right way. Now just to give you an idea, like these did have some life left in them. However, compared to the new pads, see the difference in thickness there. So they have worn quite a bit. That's only after 50,000 Ks. If your car is over that and you haven't done the brakes yet, definitely do it, because they will be getting very low. Now, the Rotors do have also the little handbrake thing in here, which I dare say will have to be released before you can actually take the rotor off, but we'll get to that when we can finally get this bracket off, if it will come off now. So I'll give that another blast and see what it does. Alright, got it off after many hours of trying, and bolts are up super tight and you can't really get an impact in there very well, but anyway, we got there in the end. So now's a good chance to give all this a bit of a clean up and a bit of a spray with some WD-40 or something similar. These are obviously your handbrake pads, so have a bit of a look and make sure everything's looking okay in there. Very dirty, of course, exposed to all the elements, so give it a good clean up and it'll be right to go. So now we can put the new rotor on, put the pads in, and then this side's done. Thank goodness for that. Alright, onto the driver's side now. Whilst we wait for them bolts to soak in some 556, just thought I'd mention, when you're doing the rear, you need to have the handbrake off, because obviously the brake shoes will be pushing up into the actual rotor itself. It'll obviously stop you from taking it off. Now this little thing, this little rubber bung here. You will have to take that out. However, there's nothing on the inside like you might expect on any other sort of car that has a more traditional style handbrake. There's no little gear in there that you need to loosen off to be able to actually take the rotor off. The handbrake is adjusted a different way, so just make sure the handbrake's off and you'll be able to get the rotor off easy enough. Also, greasing your brake pads. I've never really found it necessary to do. However, you certainly can do it. So I'll just show you. You can chuck a bit of grease on this back pad here and a little bit up the top here. Obviously make sure you get nothing on the face of the actual brake pad itself. However, you can add a little bit of grease if you want. So DBA includes a bit of brake pad high temp lubricant, which you can add to the brake pads. Just makes it a bit easier when it comes to taking them off and can help with any sort of squealing or anything like that. However, these brake pads, I've never had a drama with anything making noise or anything like that, or being an issue to take off. It's up to you, your choice. You can do it if you like. However, I don't typically tend to do it. Never really have any dramas. Now, I'm having to use a spanner and a hammer to undo these bolts, just for the fact that they are so tight and I can't get a rattle gun or an impact in there to actually get them off. This is the method to break them free. The other side really put up a fight yesterday, so hopefully today this side will be a bit easier. I even used a ratchet strap on the spanner to the back of the car and it still would not release the bolt, but eventually they did finally come out, so thank goodness for that. Now, just back to this little bung, you will have to reuse it. The DBA rotors don't come with a spare one, so you do have to reuse it. So that easily just pops in and out with a pair of pliers and you just push back in and it's easy as. So we'll let that soak a little bit longer and then we can hopefully see if it'll come off. Now, if you do get confused as to which pad goes where, pretty easy to see. This one is obviously the side that's closest to the piston in the caliper. You can see where the piston's been pushing on it, and also has the tab at the back there. This one has nothing on it and just has the single tab up the top. So it's pretty easy to tell that that is the one that is closest to you. Now, as you can see, these pads again have worn down quite a bit. You know, pretty much due for replacement. They'd last till the next service, but it's good to be on top of it just so you don't have any dramas. So again, that's after about 50,000 Ks, so they do wear down pretty quick on the rear, so just be mindful of that. And just like that, we're all back together. That only took about 20 minutes or so. It was a lot easier on this side, so that was good. Pads are in, new rotors on, then we can go and bed it in. Now, I have noticed a massive difference in stopping performance just by doing the fronts, so I look forward to seeing how the rears help in that. So really happy with doing this, and yeah, as you've seen by the condition of the pads, it was definitely time to get it done. So if you're looking for a bit of a project to do over the Christmas holidays, this is a good one to do. A lot easier if you had a hoist, but obviously very achievable just on the ground with some basic hand tools. Obviously make sure you use plenty of good penetrant to get them bolts undone, because they can be quite stiff, especially if they've never been undone before. So just keep that in mind, but it's certainly easy enough to do yourself. So get in there, have a crack, and you'll be surprised by how much of a difference some good brakes will make. And there you go. A job that'll take you a couple of hours over the weekend and makes a massive difference to the stopping power of your Patrol, which is quite important being such a heavy car and the weights that they do tow as well as carry. It's pretty important to make sure your brakes are absolutely tip-top. Like I've shown, pretty easy. Obviously just make sure you got the right tools and whatnot to be able to do it. However, once you get them bracket bolts undone, everything is very straightforward, pretty streamlined, and you can do it very quickly. Them bolts for me were the biggest challenge, just because they were so tight, and having a bit of corrosion and rust and whatnot on them didn't help, but a bit of penetrant of some description certainly helps. It makes the world of difference, and they do come off fairly easily after that. Definitely get on top of your brakes, guys. And if you don't feel confident doing it yourself, book it in and get them done, because they are quite important, and they're the only thing that stop you when you are driving. So let me know down in the comments below, what are your Christmas projects that you're going to be working on your car? Are you going to be doing some maintenance? Are you going to be doing few little service bits here and there, or are you going to build something for your patrol like a set of drawers? Let me know. I'll be very interested to know what you guys are up to over your break. That'll probably be the final video of the year, so if I don't catch you all before then, I hope you all have a very safe and very enjoyable Christmas, and leave periods where you get to enjoy some time with your family, get out and enjoy Australia, and most of all, enjoy your patrol. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the new year.